Document. Part 1. The universe was vast, cold, and indifferent. Stars burned billions of miles away, their light taking centuries to reach the edges of uncharted space. In this endless void, a small, battered ship drifted silently, its hull scarred by time and debris. The ship had no name, only a series of faded numbers etched into its side numbers that meant nothing to anyone who might stumble upon it. It was a relic, forgotten like so much else from Earth's past. Inside the dimly lit corridors of the derelict vessel, Rachel Monroe moved cautiously. Her boots echoed softly against the metal floor as she swept her flashlight over walls covered in dust and grime. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but something had drawn her hair, a faint signal picked up by her colony scanners months ago. At first, many dismissed it as interference or a malfunction, but Rachel couldn't let it go. There was something about the frequency, something familiar, yet strange. Like a voice whispering from the depths of history. Rachel stopped when she reached a sealed door. Its surface was cracked, and wires dangled loosely from where panels had been torn away. She knelt down, pulling out a small handheld device. With steady hands, she connected the tool to the exposed wiring and began overriding the lock. After a few tense moments, the door hissed open, revealing a dark chamber beyond. Her breath caught in her throat as the beam of her flashlight illuminated rows of ancient data cores stacked neatly along the walls. They were old, even older than the stories passed down through generations, but they looked intact. Rachel stepped closer, running her fingers over one of the cores. It hummed faintly under her touch, responding to her presence after thousands of years of silence. Jacob Hayes, she whispered, reading the name engraved on a plaque near the entrance. She recognized the name from fragmented records kept in her colony's archives. Jacob Hayes had been a historian, one of the last humans to document Earth's fall before the Galactic Council exiled humanity to the farthest corners of the galaxy. He had dedicated his life to preserving knowledge, convinced that one day, humanity would rise again. And now, standing amidst his work, Rachel felt a surge of hope and anger. For 3,000 years, humanity had been scattered, broken, and oppressed. The Galactic Council, or coalition of alien civilizations, had deemed Earth too volatile, too unpredictable. They stripped humanity of its freedom, dismantling governments, destroying cities, and scattering survivors across the stars. Some were taken as slaves. Others were left to fend for themselves on barren planets. Over time, the memory of Earth faded, replaced by the harsh realities of survival. But not for everyone. Not for Jacob Hayes. Rachel inserted one of the data cores into a portable reader salvaged from her ship. The screen flickered to life, displaying lines of text and images that made her heart race. Maps of Earth, schematics of technology, long thought lost, and detailed accounts of humanity's betrayal scrolled before her eyes. But most importantly, there were names, the names of those responsible for humanity's downfall. Leaders of the Galactic Council, ambassadors, and enforcers who had condemned an entire species without mercy. As Rachel absorbed the information, a fire ignited within her. For centuries, humanity had lived in fear, bowing to the will of their oppressors. But no more. This discovery changed everything. If these records could be shared, if others could see the truth, then maybe, just maybe, they could fight back. A sudden noise startled her. Footsteps. Someone else was aboard the ship. Rachel quickly powered down the reader and tucked it into her pack. She pressed herself against the wall, listening intently. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by low voices speaking in a language she didn't understand. Alien scavengers, perhaps. Or worse, agents of the Galactic Council sent to erase any trace of humanity's past. She gripped the handle of her utility knife tightly, ready to defend herself if necessary. But the intruders never entered the chamber. Instead, their voices faded as they moved deeper into the ship, leaving Rachel alone once more, Breathing a sigh of relief, she slipped out of the room and retraced her steps toward the exit. Every second counted now. She needed to get back to her ship, to share what she had found with someone she trusted. Someone who could help turn these fragments of the past into weapons for the future. When Rachel finally emerged from the derelict vessel, the sight of her own ship waiting in the distance filled her with determination. She climbed aboard, secured the precious data cores, and set a course for home. As the engines roared to life, she stared out at the endless expanse of stars. 3,000 years ago, humanity had been cast aside. Now, it was time to return, as victims, but as warriors. The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake when they underestimated Earth, and soon, they would pay for it. Document Part 2. Rachel's ship descended through the thin atmosphere of a barren planet orbiting a dying star. The colony here was one of many scattered across the galaxy, home to humans who had adapted to survive in harsh conditions. It wasn't much, just a cluster of makeshift domes and mining rigs, but it was safe enough for now. Safe enough to share what she had found. As soon as her ship touched down, Nathan Cole appeared at the edge of the landing pad. He was tall and lean, with dark hair streaked with gray and calloused hands that spoke of years spent fixing things. His face lit up when he saw Rachel step out, but his smile faded quickly as he noticed the seriousness in her expression. "You're back," he said, walking over to help her unload supplies. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something close to it," Rachel replied, handing him a heavy crate. "I need your help, and not just with repairs this time." Nathan raised an eyebrow, but didn't press further. They carried the crates into his workshop, a cluttered space filled with tools, spare parts, and half-finished projects. Once inside, Rachel pulled out the portable reader containing Jacob Hayes' records. She placed it on the table and powered it on, gesturing for Nathan to take a look. At first, Nathan didn't understand. He scrolled through the data, his brow furrowing deeper with each passing second. Maps, schematics, names, they all seemed like fragments of a puzzle he couldn't quite piece together. But then he froze, staring at an image of Earth before its fall. Green continents, blue oceans, cities glowing under sunlight. It was beautiful and heartbreaking. This is real?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's real," Rachel confirmed. "Jacob Hayes preserved everything he could before they took it all away from us. These records tell the truth about what happened to Earth and who was behind it." Nathan leaned back against the wall, rubbing his temples. "And you want to do what?" "Start a war with the Galactic Council. We're barely surviving as it is, Rachel. How are we supposed to fight them?" "We don't have a choice," Rachel said firmly. "They think we're weak, divided, forgotten. But if we can unite, if we can show them we haven't given up, maybe, just maybe, we can reclaim what's ours." Nathan shook his head, unconvinced. "Even if we could rally people, we don't have the resources. No weapons, no ships, nothing." "That's where you come in," Rachel said, stepping closer. "You're the best engineer I know. If anyone can figure out how to use this tech, it's you." Nathan hesitated, torn between logic and emotion. On one hand, Rachel's plan sounded impossible. On the other, the idea of fighting back ignited a spark of hope he hadn't felt in years. Finally, he sighed and nodded. "All right," he said, "but you'll need more than me. If we're going to pull this off, we'll need everyone." Word spread quickly through the colony. At first, people were skeptical. Some dismissed Rachel's claims as wild fantasies. Others feared retaliation from the Galactic Council if they even considered rebellion. But curiosity got the better of them, and soon, a small group gathered in the main dome to hear what Rachel had to say. Standing in front of the crowd, Rachel felt nervous but determined. She projected images from the data core onto a makeshift screen, a mix of Earth's beauty, its destruction, and the faces of those responsible. As she spoke, her voice grew stronger, fueled by anger and conviction. "They betrayed us," she said, pointing to the screen. "They destroyed our home, scattered us across the stars, and left us to rot. But we're still here, and we're not alone." The room fell silent as she explained her plan to rebuild using the knowledge Jacob Hayes had preserved, to unite survivors from other colonies, and to strike back at the Galactic Council. It was a risky gamble, but something about Rachel's words resonated with the crowd. One by one, they began to nod, murmurs of agreement spreading through the room. Emily Dawson stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. She was a leader among the miners, known for her pragmatism and strength. Her arms were crossed, but her expression softened as she looked at Rachel. "If we do this," Emily said, "it won't be easy. People will die. Are you prepared for it?" "That I am," Rachel answered without hesitation. "Are you?" Emily studied her for a moment before nodding. "Then count me in." With Emily's support, momentum began to build. Survivors from nearby colonies started arriving, drawn by rumors of a new movement. Old rivalries flared occasionally, but Emily worked tirelessly to mediate disputes and keep everyone focused on the bigger picture. Meanwhile, Nathan pored over the data cores, piecing together fragments of ancient technology. One day, while examining a set of blueprints, Nathan let out a low whistle. "Rachel," he called, waving her over. "Take a look at this." On the screen was a design for a massive weapon labeled Solace. According to the notes, it had been intended as a deterrent during Earth's golden age, but it was never completed due to resource shortages. Its potential power was staggering. "If we can finish this," Nathan trailed off, his eyes wide with awe. "We might stand a chance," Rachel finished, her heart racing. "Where is it?" Nathan pointed to a set of coordinates listed beside the blueprint. "Somewhere near the edge of uncharted space. If the records are accurate, part of it might still be there." Rachel nodded, determination blazing in her eyes. "Then that's where we go next." As preparations continued, doubts lingered in the background. Supplies were scarce, and tensions ran high. Yet beneath the uncertainty, a sense of purpose began to grow. For the first time in centuries, humanity dared to dream of something greater than mere survival. They dreamed of vengeance and redemption. Document Part 3. The journey to the coordinates listed in Jacob Hayes' records was long and perilous. Rachel, Nathan, and a small crew of volunteers traveled aboard a patched-up transport ship, its engines groaning under the strain of constant use. The vessel wasn't designed for deep space exploration, but it was all they had. Every jump through hyperspace brought them closer to their destination, and closer to answers. As they approached the edge of uncharted space, the excitement aboard the ship grew palpable. Conversations buzzed with speculation about what they might find. Some hoped for weapons or technology that could turn the tide against the Galactic Council. Others feared they'd arrive too late, that whatever Solace was, it would be nothing more than ruins. Nathan spent most of his time hunched over a console, double-checking calculations and monitoring sensor readings. His hands moved deftly across the controls, his mind racing with possibilities. "If even half of this thing is still intact," he muttered to himself, "we might actually have a shot." Rachel sat nearby, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. She tried to focus on the mission ahead, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Earth. She imagined what it must have been like before the falsities alive with energy. People laughing and living without fear. The images from the data cores haunted her, not because they were painful, but because they reminded her of everything humanity had lost. When the ship finally dropped out of hyperspace, the sight before them took everyone's breath away. Suspended in the void was a massive orbital station, partially buried beneath layers of asteroid debris. Its surface was pitted and scarred, but sections of it still gleamed faintly under the distant light of a dying star. It looked ancient, yet somehow alive, as if waiting patiently for someone to return. "This is it," Nathan said, his voice tinged with awe. "This has to be where they built Solace." The crew worked quickly to dock their ship on the station's outer hull. Once inside, they found themselves in a labyrinth of dark corridors and abandoned chambers. Dust coated every surface, and the air smelled stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in millennia. But despite the decay, there were signs of life, or rather activity. Faint hums echoed through the walls, and emergency lights flickered intermittently, powered by backup systems that refused to die. Rachel led the way, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. They followed markers etched into the walls until they reached a massive door marked with the same insignia they'd seen in the records: a stylized sun surrounded by orbiting rings. Above it, the word Solace glowed faintly, powered by some residual energy source. "It's here," Rachel whispered, her voice trembling with anticipation. "We've found it." Nathan stepped forward and examined the control panel beside the door. "Looks like the locking mechanism is still active," he said, pulling out his tools. "Give me a minute." While Nathan worked, Rachel turned to the others. Sarah Bennett, the medic, stood quietly nearby, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She had joined the mission reluctantly, more out of loyalty to Nathan than belief in the cause. But now, as she gazed at the door, her expression softened, curiosity overtaking her skepticism. "What do you think we'll find?" Sarah asked softly. "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But whatever it is, it's our best chance." With a final click, the door slid open, revealing a cavernous chamber beyond. Inside, towering machinery stretched toward the ceiling, covered in thick layers of dust and grime. At the center of the room was a massive structure, a skeletal frame of metal and wires, incomplete but unmistakably powerful. This was Solace, or at least part of it. "Unbelievable," Nathan breathed, stepping closer. He ran his hand along the framework, marveling at the craftsmanship. "This isn't just a weapon. It's art." Rachel nodded, her eyes scanning the room. Scattered around the chamber were crates of components, tools, and schematics, everything they needed to finish construction. It was as if Jacob Hayes and his team had left knowing someone might one day come to complete their work. "We can do this," Rachel said, turning to face the group. "We can rebuild it." But as they began exploring further, they realized they weren't alone. Movement caught Sarah's eye near the far end of the chamber. She raised her flashlight, revealing several drones hovering silently in the shadows. Their metallic bodies were battered and worn, but their sensors blinked to life as they detected intruders' eyes. Sarah called out nervously, "We've got company." The drones advanced slowly, emitting low mechanical whirs. Nathan quickly pulled up a display on his wrist console, analyzing their behavior. "They're automated sentries," he explained, "probably programmed to protect this place from outsiders." "Can we shut them down?" Rachel asked, gripping the utility knife at her side. "Maybe," Nathan replied, already typing furiously, "but it'll take time. We need to distract them." Without hesitation, Sarah grabbed a loose piece of debris and hurled it toward the far corner of the room. The sound drew the drone's attention, giving Nathan the opening he needed. He uploaded a virus into the station's mainframe, targeting the drone's operating systems. One by one, they froze in mid-air, their lights dimming as they powered down. "That should hold them," Nathan said, wiping sweat from his brow. "For now, anyway." With the immediate threat neutralized, the group set to work. Nathan and Rachel focused on studying the schematics and organizing the materials, while Sarah helped clear debris and catalog useful components. Hours passed in a blur of activity, each discovery fueling their determination. By the time they returned to the ship, exhaustion weighed heavily on them, but their spirits were high. For the first time since Earth's fall, they felt a glimmer of hope. Solace wasn't just a relic of the past, it was a promise of the future. a promise that humanity could rise again. As Rachel gazed back at the station through the viewport, she allowed herself a small smile. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but they had taken the first step, and that, she thought, was enough for now. Document Part 4. The news of Solace spread quickly among the scattered colonies. Rachel and Nathan returned to their home settlement with plans and blueprints, their excitement infectious. They called meetings in every dome, sharing what they had found and rallying others to join their cause. At first, people were hesitant. The idea of challenging the Galactic Council seemed impossible, even reckless. But as Rachel spoke about Earth's history, its betrayal, and the potential power of Solace, more and more survivors began to listen. Not everyone was convinced. Some argued that humanity should focus on rebuilding, rather than risking everything for revenge. Among them was Victor Kane, a gruff but respected leader from a neighboring mining colony. His face was lined with years of hardship, and his voice carried the weight of experience. He stood during one of the gatherings, addressing the crowd with a mix of frustration and concern. "We're barely surviving as it is," Victor said, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "How do you expect us to fight an empire that's had thousands of years to grow stronger? This isn't bravery, it's suicide." Rachel stepped forward, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I'm not asking you to risk your life for revenge," she replied calmly. "I'm asking you to fight for our future. If we don't stand up now, we'll never have a chance to be free." Her words struck a chord with many, but Victor wasn't swayed. He shook his head and walked away, muttering something about wasted effort. Despite his skepticism, others began volunteering their skills and resources. Engineers, miners, pilots all contributed what they could to the growing movement. Even those who doubted the mission felt compelled to help, driven by the hope that maybe, just maybe, humanity could reclaim its place among the stars. Nathan worked tirelessly to organize the effort. He set up workshops in unused domes, transforming them into makeshift factories where volunteers pieced together parts for Solace. Old engines were stripped down, scavenged materials repurposed, and ancient designs brought back to life. It was slow, painstaking work, but progress was steady. Every completed component brought them closer to finishing the weapon. Rachel, meanwhile, focused on uniting the factions. She traveled between colonies, speaking with leaders and listening to their concerns. Many were wary of trusting outsiders. Centuries of isolation had bred distrust. Emily Dawson accompanied her on these trips, using her sharp wit and patient demeanor to mediate disputes. Together, they managed to bridge gaps between groups that had once been enemies, but tensions simmered beneath the surface. Arguments broke out over resource allocation, leadership roles, and strategy. Some accused others of hoarding supplies, or slacking off. A few incidents turned violent, forcing Emily to step in and restore order. She reminded everyone of their shared goal, freedom from oppression. Slowly, reluctantly, the factions began to cooperate. One evening, after a particularly heated debate, Rachel found herself sitting alone in the corner of a dimly lit dome. Sarah joined her, carrying 2 cups of steaming tea. She handed one to Rachel and sat down beside her, studying her face with quiet concern. "You look tired," Sarah said softly. "I am," Rachel admitted, taking a sip of the tea. "This isn't easy. Half the time, I feel like we're holding this whole thing together with string and duct tape." Sarah chuckled. "That's pretty much how everything works around here. But you're doing better than most would in your position." Rachel sighed, staring into the distance. "Do you think we can actually pull this off?" Sarah hesitated before answering. "Honestly, I don't know. But I do know that if anyone can make it happen, it's you. You've got people believing again, and that's no small thing." Rachel smiled faintly, grateful for the encouragement. Still, doubts lingered in her mind. Could they really unite humanity after so many centuries of division? And even if they succeeded, would solace truly be enough to challenge the Galactic Council? The next day, disaster struck. A critical piece of machinery malfunctioned during testing, causing an explosion that injured several workers and destroyed weeks' worth of progress. Panic rippled through the colony as rumors spread that the project was cursed or worse. Sabotage. Rachel and Nathan immediately launched an investigation. They reviewed security footage, interviewed witnesses, and inspected the damaged equipment. Suspicion fell on Victor Kane and his followers, who had openly opposed the mission. When confronted, Victor denied involvement, his anger boiling over. "I may not agree with this madness," he snapped, "but I'm not stupid enough to sabotage it. If you fail, we all suffer." Despite his denial, evidence pointed to someone within the group. Tools had gone missing, and certain systems had been tampered with. Frustration mounted as accusations flew, threatening to tear the fragile alliance apart. It was Nathan who finally uncovered the truth. Late one night, while reviewing data logs, he noticed anomalies in the station's AI core, the same system that had controlled the automated drones guarding Solace. Digging deeper, he discovered remnants of a rogue program embedded in the code. It had been designed to prevent outsiders from accessing the weapon, activating only when significant progress was made. It wasn't sabotage, Nathan explained to Rachel and the others. It was self-defensive failsafe, left behind by whoever built this place. Relief washed over the group, though unease remained. The incident highlighted how vulnerable they were not just to external threats, but to their own divisions. Rachel called another meeting, urging everyone to stay focused. "We're stronger together," she said, her voice firm. "If we let fear and mistrust divide us, then the Galactic Council has already won. But if we stand united, we can overcome anything, including ourselves." Her words resonated, calming the unrest. Work resumed, slower but steadier. Trust began to rebuild, brick by brick. Though challenges lay ahead, the movement gained momentum. Humanity was rising not as victims, but as survivors determined to shape their own destiny. And somewhere deep within Rachel, a spark of hope burned brighter than ever before. Document. Part 5. The resistance was growing stronger, but so was the sense of urgency. Every day brought new challenges, shortages of materials, disagreements among factions, and the looming threat of discovery by the Galactic Council. Rachel knew they couldn't afford to wait much longer. They needed to test their strength, to see if they were ready for the fight ahead. And there was only one way to do that: take action. Nathan had been monitoring nearby space traffic using salvaged scanners. He noticed a pattern: a patrol ship belonging to the Zorthians, one of the founding members of the Galactic Council, frequently passed through a specific sector. The Zorthians were known for their arrogance and reliance on superior technology. To them, humanity was little more than a forgotten footnote in history. "We can hit them," Nathan said during a strategy meeting. "It's risky, but if we succeed, it'll send a message to them and to us." Rachel nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "If we capture that ship, we'll get intel, supplies, and proof that we're not as weak as they think." Emily raised an eyebrow. "And if we fail, then we'll know where we stand," Rachel replied firmly. "Either way, we can't keep hiding forever." The plan came together quickly. A small strike team would ambush the patrol ship in the asteroid field near its usual route. Rachel insisted on leading the mission herself, despite protests from Sarah and Nathan. "Someone has to make the tough calls," she said. "This is my responsibility." The strike team consisted of 6 volunteers, including Jake Miller, a young pilot eager to prove himself. His enthusiasm was matched only by his inexperience, but he refused to back down when others suggested he stay behind. "I want to help," he said earnestly. "Let me do this." On the day of the operation, the team boarded 2 modified fighters, each equipped with weapons scavenged from old Earth designs. Nathan had spent hours tweaking the engines and shields, ensuring they could hold their own against the Zorathian vessel. As they launched into space, Rachel felt a mix of excitement and dread. This was their first real test, and failure wasn't an option. The ambush began smoothly. Using the asteroids for cover, the fighters closed in on the patrol ship undetected. At Rachel's signal, they fired, disabling the ship's engines and communication systems. The Zorathians responded with precision lasers, forcing the fighters to dodge and weave through the chaos. Jake flew recklessly, drawing enemy fire away from the others, while Rachel coordinated the attack. Focus on their rear thrusters, Rachel commanded over the comms. We need to immobilize them completely. One of the fighters managed to land a direct hit, sending sparks flying from the patrol ship's hull. The Zorathians retaliated fiercely, their advanced weaponry tearing through the asteroid field. Debris rained down around the fighters, making navigation even more dangerous. Despite the odds, the team held their ground. But then disaster struck. Jake's fighter took a critical hit, spinning out of control toward the patrol ship. Over the comms, his voice crackled with panic. I'm hit. I can't stabilize. Eject, Jake, Rachel shouted. Get out of there. I can't, he replied, his tone steady now. If I don't finish this, we'll lose our chance. Before anyone could stop him, Jake steered his damaged fighter directly into the patrol ship's main cannon, destroying it in a brilliant explosion. The sacrifice gave the rest of the team the opening they needed to board the vessel. Rachel led the charge onto the patrol ship, her heart heavy with grief but her resolve unshaken. The Zorathian crew put up a fierce fight, but the humans' determination outweighed their numbers. One by one, the aliens fell, until the ship was secured. Inside the command center, Rachel found what they were looking for: data logs detailing recent council activities, including plans to expand their influence into uncharted territories. She downloaded everything onto a portable drive, knowing it could provide valuable insights for future operations. As the team prepared to leave, Nathan contacted Rachel via comms. We've got company, he warned. Another council ship is incoming. You need to move now. There was no time to mourn Jake or celebrate their victory. The team evacuated just as the second ship arrived, narrowly escaping into hyperspace. Back at the colony, silence greeted their return. Everyone knew what had happened. Jake's absence spoke louder than words. During a solemn gathering later that evening, Rachel addressed the crowd. Her voice trembled as she spoke about Jake's bravery and ultimate sacrifice. He didn't die in vain, she said, her eyes glistening with tears. He showed us what it means to fight for something greater than ourselves. Let his courage inspire us all. The colony erupted into cheers, though sadness lingered in the air. Jake's death became a rallying cry, solidifying their resolve to continue the fight. For the first time, humanity truly felt united, not just by shared goals, but by shared loss. In the days that followed, the stolen data revealed crucial information about the Council's weaknesses. It also confirmed what Rachel had suspected. The Council viewed humanity as insignificant, unworthy of attention. That arrogance would be their undoing. As Rachel stared at the stars through the window of her quarters, she whispered a quiet promise. We're coming for you, she said, and we won't stop until justice is served.